So we've all been told that stress is the silent killer and that stress is associated with all-cause mortality. And that evidence is, I think, irrefutable. The problem is that our understanding of stress and the way that it's talked about, I think, is poorly understood, because a lot of the guidance that's given about managing stress, I think, really misses the mark. A lot of the advice that's given is really to avoid stressful circumstances at all costs. And I think that that's problematic for a couple of different reasons. One is it's impossible to avoid stressful situations. Two, we lose our resilience. And if stressful circumstances are impossible to avoid and we start to lose our resilience, then when those inevitable and unavoidable stressful circumstances arise, then we don't have the capacity to deal with them. So the approach that I use, the approach that I like to instruct and help my clients to use, is instead to approach stress in a completely different way. And it's to approach stress by preparing for it ahead of time. And when I say preparing for it ahead of time, I mean not just what we do right before the stressful event, but how we manage stress in our lives from a physiological point of view sets us up for being able to deal with stress in a positive way later as well. So I'm going to give you two bits of advice, two protocols that you can use to manage stress in a good way, in a way that I think is positive. The first is to regulate your physiology using your breath. So if you know that you're going to be encountering something that's stressful, a difficult conversation, a medical procedure, a job interview, some difficult news, anything like that, what you can do is you can send signals to the amygdala. One of the things that the amygdala does in the middle of the brain, right above the brainstem, is it is a threat detection mechanism. And we can actually send signals to that threat detection mechanism to actually reduce the perception of threat. So that way, whatever's coming to us from the outside, whether that is bad news or a difficult conversation, a job interview, whatever it is, it doesn't activate the threat detection center as much, if at all. And one of the things we can do to turn that down, aside from using drugs like benzodiazepines and Ativan and things like that, is we can actually use the breath. So one simple breathing technique that I like to use is what I call the square breath. And essentially how this works is you inhale for a certain period of time, usually about 6 to 8 seconds. You hold the breath at the top in for the same period of time, 6 to 8 seconds. Exhale for 6 to 8 seconds, and then hold the breath out for 6 to 8 seconds. And if you do this for 2 minutes, one of the things that I've experienced is that the amygdala, the activity in the amygdala, will reduce. And how do I know this? Because I can measure something called heart rate variability, which I'll talk about in a different video. But I can actually watch my heart rate variability increase, which tells me that the activation of my amygdala, the threat detection centers, is going down. The other thing that you can do to prepare for it is reframing the circumstance. So one of the things that Stephen Kotler, he's the author of The Art of Impossible. He's basically a subject matter expert on peak performance and flow state. One of the things that he suggested that I've adopted is, before a stressful circumstance, to simply reframe it by saying, I'm excited, I'm excited, I'm excited. And by doing that, it changes the perception of what's happening, because, you're feeling maybe elevated heart rates. Maybe you're feeling, a little bit of maybe fear or anxiety and anticipation of what's going to happen. And if we reframe it to, I'm actually excited, then the brain can't really tell a difference between excitement or stress. So combining these two things just prior to a potential stressful event is something I think that anybody can do to build stress resilience. So this way we don't have to avoid stressful circumstances. We can actually go right into them and look the dragon right in the eyes. Okay, I hope that's helpful.